Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a Voice of Truth podcast. I am your host, Elisa. I know I did a part one yesterday on more of my history. That's what the name of the first one is called. And it was a part one. I'm going to go ahead and do a part two of this. Uh, the reason why I am doing my story is I haven't really fully gotten my entire story out there. Yesterday, I guess you could say I was feeling led to make a video about it. Um, something told me to do it, and so I was like, okay, you know. So I went ahead and did part one, and it almost lasted an entire hour. So I thought, well, I was getting tired and I decided to go ahead and just call it a night last night. And I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, pick up where I was. As I was saying in the first part, I was talking about how the medications were not helping me anymore. I was dealing with a flare up. I'm going to catch you guys up a little bit if you haven't watched it yet. I suggest you go watch it, but I will give a little bit of a summary that I ended up sick and hospitalized a couple of times with ulcerative colitis, is what I was diagnosed with. I was talking about how those events went down, what exactly went down, and I was talking about how I had told Spirit that I was ready for a change in 2021, and in that following September in 2021, I ended up with, a sudden flare up. Literally, it came out of nowhere because at the time I was doing the keto diet and I was exercising, I was going to the gym quite frequently, and for whatever reason, I ended up sick. I don't know why. That's what I had mentioned. But I ended up getting the answers as to why this all happened. Where I'm picking up at this point in time was how in the year of 2022, after being hospitalized for a week from this horrific flare that almost took my life, it was pretty bad. One of the things I had forgotten to mention yesterday, now that I'm thinking of it, was the fact that yes, I did mention that my mom was worried. She was very, very concerned about my well being. She started checking in on me before she went to work, and she worked 5 days out of the week. So she started making sure before she left for work that I was still breathing. And so she comes home in March, sometime in the middle of the month, and she wakes me up. I believe I went hypoxic. Hypoxia is when your brain is lacking oxygen, more likely from either from blood loss or, from something else. And in my situation, the blood loss was very extreme. So therefore, I ended up in a hypoxic state, which I believe. No doctor told me, no nurse told me, but what I understand is that it does cause confusion, it does cause memory loss, it does cause a lot of different things, and I can't think of them all at this point. But I do believe that's what happened because my hematocrit was way down there. I think it was below 30 somewhere. It might have been below 20 actually. And I know that my hemoglobin, my nurse friends are going to understand this. My hemoglobin was at 5. By the time I got to the hospital the following day, it was at 4.9. So it fell again. Um, Everything, all of my stores, all of my everything, all of my vitamin stores, everything was in the red. The only thing that was not lacking was platelets. My platelet count went up. That is why I ended up with DVTs in my right leg. I also ended up with pulmonary embolisms. Now, one of the things I did not get to cover yesterday was what happened entirely with my leg situation. So, what happened, the reason why the pulmonary embolisms showed up, And I might have already started having some and didn't even realize it because I was coughing a lot. I had this very annoying cough that started sometime in mid January. And it was only when I laid flat on my back is when I started coughing. In time, I started noticing that my coughing had substantially increased. So by the time that I was hospitalized, I was coughing a great deal and I did have chest pain, but I never did cough up blood. Usually, in a situation of having pulmonary embolisms, you will cough up blood, but there are some that don't. I never did. Although I did taste something very similar to it in the back of my throat a couple of times, I did notice something was there. But I never was able to prove it or not because trust me, if I had seen that, then I would have done something because that has never happened to me. Despite being a smoker for 14 and a half years, I have never had a situation like that show up. So that would have been alarming enough. I do know also one of the things that I failed to mention was how extreme the dehydration was in the sense that my hands cramped so bad. It was also probably from lack of blood too. But the thing was is that they cramped so bad. I'd be driving home and I could see my knuckles, just moving on their own. They cramped so bad I had to hang on to the wheel, and not not let go because I was the only thing keeping them from contorting on their own. Even my feet felt that way at times. Um, so as I was talking about with my leg, I had noticed that in late January that my leg was starting to feel funny and it was starting to hurt. February is when it began to hurt really bad and it began to swell. I believe it was in my calf that first time. Having being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, it is highly recommended that you stay away from iron tablets because it's very hard on the gut. The other thing to stay away from are NSAIDs. That's ibuprofen, that's aspirin, that's naproxen. Anything of that nature will cause more blood loss for those with ulcerative colitis. That's what I do know for a fact. But with the unbelievable amounts of pain that I had in my leg and not really having anything to fall back on outside of Bentyl, I was taking ibuprofen that way I could still work. Interestingly enough, for those that have a history of a heart attack, they give them aspirin. I was taking ibuprofen. It does the same thing that aspirin does, which is an NSAID, which will in turn thin the blood a little bit. It's not going to be a whole lot, but it's, I guess, enough because in my situation, not knowing that it was a blood clot for sure, um, putting pressure on it sent horrific bouts of pain all throughout my leg. Taking ibuprofen helped with that, gave me at least 4 hours of pain relief. So I continued taking it, and I probably did that every day for a few weeks. Within that time, the swelling in my leg went away, but my coughing had gotten worse. When I had gotten admitted to the hospital, I'm sorry, when I was in the ER, they had done an ultrasound on my leg and they did find remnants because I told them there was a pain that started in the calf. Uh, she found remnants of a blood clot there. And I had told her, I think that it broke apart. I was lucky enough that it broke apart. It did not stay whole because if it stayed whole and dislodged, it would have gone to my heart and that would have been it for me. That much I do know about blood clots, but I had never before experienced such a thing. I would probably say after that one had dislodged, I will say not only did the coughing pick up, but after a few weeks from that, my knee in the same leg started feeling weird. just really strange. And I had noticed that my leg was starting to swell again. The pain was getting worse. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? Um, so I go to the hospital and they see a nice big one in the back of my knee. And so they had to put me on a heparin drip. I ended up, as I had mentioned yesterday, now that I'm remembering, I had ended up with a GI doctor who ended up with the worst bedside manner I had ever seen any physician have. And I've seen a couple of really bad ones, but this guy was so not just arrogant, but so prideful, so whatever. I mean, he was an ass. So what happened was I ended up switching doctors after a couple months of him just diddle daddling around with my health. He really wasn't doing anything. I was put on a medication before I left the hospital to help control the ulcerative colitis a little bit, and it was working, and I was getting better. Problem is that after I guess a couple of weeks being on it, I had noticed that my stomach started to hurt. Um, I ended up with, I don't think it was gastritis, but I ended up with really bad acid reflux. So I had to change that medication to mesalamine. It was helping, but it wasn't doing a whole lot. Regardless of having the full dose of mesalamine a day, regardless of having Bentyl with me, and regardless of being on 80 milligrams of prednisone while being on 9 milligrams of budesonide from this doctor, I was still doing badly and my health was still declining. So I ended up switching doctors that my PCP had told me about. She said that there is a better GI doctor. My God, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. There's a better GI doctor, and I ended up seeing him. He went through my history and he took me off of that really high dose of prednisone. By the time I started seeing him, I was already beginning to taper from that prednisone. Here's the thing, when you're on prednisone, especially a high course of prednisone for a couple of weeks there, the taper is supposed to be 5 milligrams every week. So you're supposed to decrease by 5 milligrams. It's a slow taper, and it's for your safety because your body becomes a little dependent on it. So in order to prevent any sort of shock to the body, you are supposed to decrease in a very slow manner. This did not happen. On the bottle, I don't have the bottle anymore, but on the bottle of the 80 milligram of prednisone, I was told to be on 80 milligrams for about a week to a week and a half, and then decrease from 80 milligrams down to 40. That's a big problem. That's a safety issue. And if I had it in me at the time, I would have reported his ass. That is a very big no-no that any physician could ever put you in. That's a very bad position. Very bad position. And I ended up decreasing from 80 milligrams down to 40 within a day. Don't let any doctor do that to you. I was taken off the budesonide from my new doctor, and he put me on some other medications which helps gain control of this. But this new medication that he put me on was, I guess, sometime later. And during that time, I was still getting worse. It was getting to the point where prednisone wasn't helping with pain for longer than an hour at a time. This one night, I'd probably say at the end of August. Interesting, we're toward the end of August now. In 2022, me and at the time he was my boyfriend, we were just chilling in the bed watching a show. And there was a scene on the show. In fact, I think it was Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And I used to love watching that show when I was really sick because it made me laugh. So, since I was watching those old episodes, the classic ones from the 90s, the ones I grew up on, there was a scene that they were showing where Will Smith and Carlton were both, I guess they were doing a competition with girls and boys, seeing which one could outdo the other. And there was that scene where Will Smith turns like a piano song on, and Carlton's descending down the staircase in a dress. And during that time, and when that music played, there was another sound at the opposite side of the house. It was already the middle of the night. My mom was already asleep, tucked in bed on the opposite side of the house. By the time that 10 o'clock rolled around, she was already in bed. This happening in the middle of the night was very unusual. And the cat was in the room with us, I believe. And I hear what sounds like keys jingling on the other side of the house. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I had paused the music, or the show rather, and I had asked him, who was, I mean, he's now my husband, but I had asked him, did you hear that? And he said, I think I heard something, but I'm not sure. Play it back. So I rewound it to that part and I played it back. And I paused it and I said, you noticed the difference, right? He said, yes, I noticed the difference. And I said, I heard something back there. And he's like, oh, yeah, I definitely heard something. And he was like, it was something extra there. At the time, I was a practitioner. And at the time, I had always heard that when a goddess, a particular goddess, shows up, there is this jingling noise. You'll probably hear what sounds like keys rattling or dogs barking in the background. Some of y'all know. The rest, well, that's okay. You don't need to know. So, anyway, I hear that and I'm like, oh my God. I started thinking back on that. Somebody had told me about it back then. And I told him, I said, I think I know who's here. And he was like, oh, who? So I told him about it. And he said, oh, well, keep me up to date because I'm going to go ahead and head home now. I said, okay. So I didn't hear anything for the rest of the night. The next night, I hear it again. So he's at work. And at the time, we weren't living together. So he's working overnights. And I was getting up multiple times out of the night. And when I would get up, after getting back into bed, I would text him and we would talk a little bit. During that time, this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, mind you, I take another dosage of prednisone because that was in my treatment plan at the time. And I hear the keys jingling again. This time, it was really close to my bedroom door. There was a wall that stuck out, so I couldn't see past a certain point. But I heard it really close, just what sounded like right outside of my bedroom door. And so the next thing I know is that I tell him, first of all, before I say this, I tell him about it. And I said, I hear that noise again. And he said, is anything happening right now? And I said, no. In fact, it's extremely quiet in the house right now. He said, huh, that's interesting. And I said, yeah. I was like, yeah, I have my box fan on, but Kitty's in the room. My mom's in bed. I don't know. This is weird. And so I end up falling asleep. In this dream, a woman walks in. I don't remember really what she looked like, but she was young. She was a beautiful woman. She walks in and she crouches down to the side of my bed. And she says, "So, how are you doing?" And I start crying. Immediately, I start crying. And I said, "I can't do this anymore." And I'm crying. I'm sobbing at this point. And I tell her everything about how I'm feeling. I said, "I feel terrible. I feel weak. I'm this and that." And I told her, I said, "The pain is getting worse. And I don't know what to do. And I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore." And she said, "I came here to help you. And what I need you to do is I need you to lay on your back." I said, "Okay." So I told her, I said, "I'm going to need help because my body hurts so bad." Understand, I had lost about 40 something pounds within just a couple of months. I lost a lot of my weight. I was before I got sick, I was going to the gym all the time. I had I had it going on. I was in very good shape. Very good shape. I had a lot of muscle on me, and I was in very very good shape. I was trim. I was slender. I had it going on. But I lost it all from the sickness. So she helps me turn over onto my back. And everything, guys, everything hurt every day. Everything hurt. So what she does is she takes her hand and so close, she puts it very, very close to me. She's not touching me, but she's very close. And it's right where the stomach is. And she said, "This is not going to hurt." So she starts lifting her hand very slowly. In the meantime, I start feeling my body involuntarily moving. And inside of me, I feel something moving. It's my body is doing this. I'm not doing it. My body is doing this. And she's lifting her hand, lifting her hand, lifting her hand. And it was the weirdest thing, but I had this crazy fuzzy sensation all over me. It was almost like somebody had a light sheet on me and pulled it off. And I remember my body initially was lifting up with hers, but then I feel that sensation and my body just kind of falls back. I never did levitate, but I'm just giving you an example. It was just I could feel my body lifting up a little bit. So anyway, I feel something release, like something was taken off of me completely. And then above me, oh, I'm sorry. I open my eyes, and right above me, I see a shadowy replica of myself. I see her suspended right above me. She's levitating right above me. I mean, we're probably like this close at this point. And I'm like, "What's that?" And the shadowiness of I guess you could say a mirror reflection of myself had opened her eyes. And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "It's something that means you harm." And then right after that, the shadowy image of me begins to dissipate. It begins to, I guess, what do you call it? It's like it begins to dissipate. I don't know how else to explain it, but I see it just going, like wafting out of the room, just like particles almost. And it's like it was ashes or something that started to move out of the room. All of a sudden, guys, I wake up and I'm coughing, 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 and my throat feels like it's burning, And I'm like, what the hell? And I keep coughing. Like right away, I jumped up from a dead sleep, and I'm coughing and coughing and coughing. And for the rest of the day, that day, not only did I feel more energetic, I felt like my life force was no longer being zapped from me. I wasn't having trouble staying awake anymore because that went on for a little while. I was actually having trouble going back to sleep after this happened. I was not healed from the sickness. It took time, a long time. It took a long time. The reason being for that was because I was scared of getting back up. I was scared that if I got back up, like many times before, that the rug was going to be pulled out from underneath me and the downfall was going to be worse. I kept telling my mom, I don't have it in me again to do this again. I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me. I didn't feel like I had it in me. That fight felt like it was gone. And after a lot of this, after I found the right medication and I started getting control of a lot of different things, my mind, guys, was all over the fucking map. All over the place. I had PTSD. I had anxiety. I had terrible bouts of depression. I mean, I would be at home looking out of the bedroom window, just tears falling down my face. I was in such bad shape. It did so much to me on a mental scale. It traumatized the shit out of me. I was scared of getting back up because I thought it was going to repeat. I thought history is going to repeat itself just like it has done so many times. I was afraid of moving forward with life. Even though that there was a voice kind of inside of me that was encouraging me to get back up, I didn't want to do it. Sometime toward the end of 2023, I believe, maybe further in the middle of 2023, is when I began to hear a disembodied voice. And this, I was under the impression, and it also deceived me into thinking that it was a particular goddess, which it was not. It came to me under a false pretense. At the time, being as low as I was on an energetic frequency level at that time, I was willing to believe anything. And at this period of time, I believed that this thing was what it claimed it was. My cat was always freaking out. I didn't quite understand why. I had what I understood was to be a friend. It kept telling me that it was a friend, that it was there to protect me, that it was not going to let any harm come to me. A disembodied voice, guys. That's a red flag. So I was thinking, okay, I gotta protect her. I'm good. This is a goddess or whatever, right? Again, I was an active, or not really active, but I was a practitioner. I had considered myself a practitioner, but I was very low vibrational at this point, very, very, very broken and traumatized. I was willing to believe whatever. And I believed this voice to be what it claimed. I was okay with that. 2024 came, and that's when things got really, really bad for me. I was already at this point, I believe sometime in 2023 is when I started, maybe late in 2022, is when I started taking kratom for pain to help manage the pain because Bentyl alone was not doing it. The medications were not doing it. This pain was terrible. And it went on and on and on, and I felt like there was no other way out, so I kept taking the kratom because it was making me feel better. My choice was the red Bali or the red Mangda. So I continued taking that, thinking, well, it's helping. And it was. But the problem was is it was causing more issues because I was becoming dependent upon it. And then that's where the addiction came from. 2024, I had this disembodied voice going on, and something weird, even more weird, began to happen. I began to see things, things moving. I began to hear banging on the walls and all kinds of different things. I would still hear a disembodied voice at night saying all these things and whatever, making the world look great. But here's the other thing is my rage was bad. I had mood swings, I had all kinds of things going on. For whatever reason, I would lose my shit over the smallest of things, and I would get so angry at my cat. I mean, I was completely ungrounded. Again, I was extremely traumatized. I didn't want to get up. I was being very stubborn. Mid 2024, my mom catches me crying in my room, and she's asking me what's wrong. Understand, my anxiety had gotten worse, my depression had gotten worse, my PTSD was getting worse, even though all these things were better. Even though my symptoms had improved a little bit, I was still dealing with whatever out of fear. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to get better. I wanted to stay where I was. Me and my boyfriend had this argument. Well, at the time, he was my boyfriend. We had this really bad argument, and I was crying over that. And she said, "What's the matter?" And so I explained it to her. I said, "Well, this is what happened. This is what happened." And I started talking a particular way, a certain way. And I could see my mom's face get real serious. And I don't remember what I was saying to her. And that was another thing, is my memory was getting worse. I don't remember what I was saying to her at the time. I just remember that I was at a very low point. And she says, "I don't like the way you're talking right now." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because the way you're talking doesn't sound right." I was like, "What?" And my mom is a self-proclaimed Christian. Okay, so it's not a big deal. It is what it is. She does her thing, I do mine. We have a mutual respect there, and we don't get in each other's way. But she saw something at that time, and this was before my spiritual awakening. I was beginning to awaken. I was aware, at least. Um, but I didn't want to see what she was talking about, because she was saying, "No, something's not right. Something's not right. I've been hearing a lot of noise in the house at night. This, and that." She's like, "Something's not right." And I told her, I said, "Don't worry about it. Like, no, this is me. Stop, talking like that, because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing going on." That's what I believed, and I believed it fully. She said, "All right, that's fine." Then this voice, this disembodied voice, was starting to turn on me around that time. That's why I started talking like that, because it was beginning to turn on me, and it was beginning to tell me things of how worthless I was, of how weak I was, of how, insignificant I was. All of these different things. This disembodied voice was telling me that. And so it came to a point that, I guess, when was that? It was either late August or it was early September. One of those two. I was getting ready for bed. And it was probably, I remember my insomnia being really bad around this time. And I would probably say it was close to 4 o'clock in the morning. I go into the bathroom. I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing the whole thing, right? And this voice started talking to me. It was not a disembodied voice, but it was a voice that was inside. Okay? It was like me, but it wasn't me. It was inside, it was deep within. Told me to go out into the hallway because there was something I needed to see. So after I got done brushing my teeth, I went out into the hallway. There was this, it was dark in the house, I will say. The only light that I had was the little bit of light shining out of my bathroom and into that hallway that I had that led to that bathroom, and there was a wall adjacent from that. This wall was near uh, the laundry room, and there was a little bit of a hang down from that wall. Anyway, so you had a wall here, and there was another wall, and then there was another wall. The laundry room was very, very dark. I did notice. And I noticed that there was like this weird light, like a round light. It was a dim light, but it was something, it was a light, right? It was illuminated. And I noticed nothing like this weird mechanical creature. It was all legs, guys. All legs. That's all I saw were legs. And they were like cricket legs or grasshopper legs bent backwards. That's all I saw. No body, no head, just legs that were connected to each other, moving. And I saw little glistening things in that dim light. When I turned the light on in the hallway, I noticed something else. That there was something else in that laundry room that was kind of glistening as well. It was huge, whatever it was. This thing was crawling on the wall. It had legs all over it. I mean, it had eyes all over it, all over the legs. And I remember seeing this thing, like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden it begins changing. It keeps changing and shifting and morphing into something else. I had no idea what I was looking at. I was like, what the hell is this? And then the next thing I know, it goes from this weird mechanical thing, and then it changes into what looks like a Spider Woman with tar coming out of her mouth. And she's doing this weird shaking shit with her head. And then the next thing I see is this other demonic creature that I've heard about. It's like a folklore um, of this demonic creature, and it can be found in the book of Demons and Demonology. That's a book that I still do have at this point in time, but it's put away. I don't really use those books at all anymore because I'm not worried about it. But the thing is that I know the name of this one that it shipped it into, but I know it wasn't that one. It just was not that one. I don't know. It was something that just kept shifting and changing right in front of my eyes. All I know is that I turned that hallway light off and I went into the bathroom because I remember seeing this thing and I'm like, what the hell? I see. Now, if y'all know, y'all will know. The one that I saw, I'm not going to say the name, but the one that I saw that it shifted into was a lion head with multiple legs in a spiral. Now, if you know, you know. I'm not saying the name. Anyway, I had gone back into the bathroom and I thought, what the hell was that? And I was told by the same voice that came from inside. It was not the disembodied voice, but it was something that was inside of me that I would later become aware of. It told me that it was a demonic creature that had attached itself to me and it was very close to winning. So after this night, I spent a couple of weeks in this shocked state, in this disbelief, in this, like, what the fuck just happened? I was very surprised, and it made me a little jumpy. I kept hearing this disembodied voice move around. It was kind of around me at this point, almost like surround sound. I was getting psychic attacks, and I was getting like this pain that was shooting up into my skull along my neck. It was like this weird band across the base of my skull. I was getting headaches all the time. I was getting a lot of crazy stuff happening to me, a lot of bangs and scratching on the wall, all kinds of shit. And I was losing my ability to sleep. One night, my boyfriend was there, or, now husband was there. He was sleeping in the bed. He was in a deep sleep this one night. I had my earphones in. My electronics wouldn't work for shit. Okay, my electronics would not work worth a damn. And I had my earpiece in to listen to music because I was always uneasy. I was always uneasy. I always felt eyes on me at this point. And so I'm laying there on one side and I'm trying to listen to music, but the signal keeps getting lost. It keeps getting jacked up. The music would not play, or something would end up wrong with the earpiece. Something was always going wrong with it. And I could never get this shit to work right. All of a sudden, I hear this really loud ring or scream or something really, really loud, just all of a sudden. And a horrible pain, like a horrible headache, and a pain that just went down like this, all the way down to my shoulder, down to my fingers. And I remember just doing this, like, oh my God, what the hell is that? I would wake up to scratching on the walls, and I woke up to scratching on the walls. He didn't hear a damn thing. He wasn't aware of anything that was going on. He was in a dead sleep. I would hit the pillow. I was wide awake, even though I was exhausted out of my mind. Anytime I came into contact with anybody else, I was always told that they were judging me, that they didn't like me by this disembodied voice. So I had to do something. After all the things I was experiencing, after everything that kept happening to me in my presence, I had to come to this realization. I had to admit it to myself that there was a problem. And this disembodied voice became threatening. It began to threaten me after a while. I think it's when I started figuring out what it was doing and why it was doing it. It began to threaten me quite literally. There was this one night when I finally told my mom everything. I had to. I had to tell her what was wrong because I caught something. What it was doing was it was trying to isolate me from everybody. And it pulled some bullshit. My mom went into the bathroom. I went into my room to grab something real quick. And when I was in my room, I got threatened by this disembodied voice. And it said, if you tell her or anybody anything, they will not only believe you, but they will think you're crazy and they will think this, they will think that. They won't believe you. And I'm like, you know what? No. And it said, something is going to happen to you tonight. That was one of the other things that it said. I'm sorry. When it threatened me, it said, something bad is going to happen to you tonight. You better keep your mouth shut. Things like that. And I'm like, you just fucked up. I said, you overplayed your hand. I'm telling her. I said, don't do it. She's not going to believe you. I said it out loud. I am telling her. And so I come out of the room and I sit in the chair. She hadn't come out yet. But I'm sitting in the chair and I start getting attacked again. And I'm like, oh, that same pain and whatever. And then finally I told her, because she said, I'm very tired. I'm good. I think I'm at, excuse me. She said, I'm so tired. I think I'm going to have to go to bed tonight a little early. And I'm like, Mom, I need to tell you something. And she said, okay. And so I told her, I said, this is what's happening. And she said, I knew it. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. And so we talked about it, and I told her what was happening to me, and I told her what I was experiencing. I slept in the bedroom with her for about a week. She wanted to give me a break, and it was just the right amount of break that I needed. Because when I was in the room with her, I was not attacked. I was not I was not tormented. Nothing. I got the break that I needed to have. But it wasn't over. It was not over. Nowhere close to over. It was only the beginning of the war, or battle, if you will. Every day when she would go to work, I was I was getting into arguments with this thing. This thing would say to me after she would leave and I was in my room, it would say, "But I thought we were friends. How could you tell her? I thought we were friends." I got mad. I got so blazing pissed. And I said, "You're a liar. Friends do not come to each other under a false pretense. You lied to me from the beginning." I would get into an argument with this thing. This argument would last all damn day. And then it would go on into the night when I was alone. These arguments went on and on and on, and I was still getting attacked. But the attacks I noticed were getting less and less and less over time. My arguments with this thing, I began to see illusions that it was placing onto me. I began to see through the illusion, and I got so good at arguments that eventually this thing would shut up and it would give me a moment's peace. Take that for what you will. But that is what happened. That's what happened. Is I learned how to argue my point and to make my point a hell of a lot better by arguing, believe it or not, with this demonic creature. I started seeing through the illusion, and that's why I talk about seeing through people's illusions. I spent so many years, and I had to realize this, and over time I did. I had spent so many years under illusions in a world of illusion that I had to realize that everything in my world was an illusion. Everything in my past was an illusion. The image that my dad showed me was an illusion. And I thought, wow. I started understanding so many things around me at that point and inside of myself. And I thought, wow, I was left with the void when this demonic creature was dealt with. I had spiritual help with Archangel Michael and Yeshua. Both of them showed up, and I called for them for days. They finally showed up, and they both helped me. And I think I talked about it in one of my videos, but I don't really remember. But I think I did talk about it. I'm going to have to find it. Anyway, they showed up and they helped me. I felt a void after this. After the demon was gone, I felt this crazy void, and my anxiety was not going away. My depression hadn't gone away either. It just stayed about the same. But I wasn't hearing a disembodied voice. I wasn't getting fucked with every second of the day or anything like that. Nothing. I was fine. Everything was calm and good at that point. But having to shift my mindset was a whole different ballpark. At the end of December is when I had my groundbreaking, earth shattering awakening. It's when I had finally seen, and I had to talk out loud. I said it out loud. I said, "I don't know why I feel this way." And I was going to bed late. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. This was after Christmas in 2024. I said, "I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why I feel this way. I feel so lost. I feel so sad. I feel this. I feel that." I said, "I don't know why, memories of my dad keep coming back, and things of my childhood keep coming back. I keep remembering this and that." And so I go in the shower and I'm washing my hair. All of a sudden, It's like something came alive out of nowhere. I heard a voice, but it was not a disembodied voice. This voice was completely different. This voice was the same one that told me that there was a demonic creature out in the hallway that I needed to see. This was the same one that told me this thing is about to win. This was the same voice that got my attention right away. And right away it said, listen. And I hear it and I'm like, oh my God. What happened was I started getting, like, I'm hearing this voice and I'm seeing my past. And I'm seeing all of the decisions that I made, all the good and the bad decisions that I ever made, all the things I ever said to people, all the things that people have said to me, every decision I made out of rage, out of anger, out of sadness, depression, whatever, the good and the bad. I saw everything that brought me to that particular point. It was like everything started to make sense. All the dots began to connect. Finally, everything made sense. And I thought, oh my God. And I just kind of, I think I did go to my knees at that point, and I was like, oh my God. And I started realizing it. And then then it started showing me when I felt ill. It was because of all the karmic debt that I accrued doing the foolish things that I did as an active practitioner in the past. All the foolish things, the foolish decisions and spells that I did, the bad ones I'm talking about, the ones that attacked others, and I'm not going to go into it, but all the things that I did, including one major big one that you are never supposed to do, I did. And it said, don't do it again because you broke major cosmic laws and you are never supposed to do this. You are never supposed to do that. And if you do it again, you will die. You will not survive it, is what it said. It didn't say you will die, but it just said you will not survive it next time. You will not survive it. And I was like, I won't do it again, I promise. But I realized at that point, I understood everything made sense. Everything made sense. That is when my life changed. That was the earth shattering experience. And then after that, the void went away. That void feeling that I had after the demon was dealt with was gone. A demon comes, okay. It says in the Kabbalion, like attracts like. That's a part of the cosmic laws or one of the hermetic principles or something like that. It's one of those. Like attracts like. That's on an energetic level. They feed off of unprocessed fears, unprocessed emotions. And whatever vibration you're at, you will attract one that's like that. I attracted something very ugly, very nasty, very vile, very vicious. That's what I had attracted. And if I hadn't stepped up, if I hadn't stood up after that, I don't know where I would be right now. I had to change my life in a way that I don't know. I don't know how I did it. I just knew that I had to do it. I didn't know where to start, but I just knew I had to do it. And one of the things that I had realized was I was addicted to kratom. I was still taking it, but I was taking more of it all day, every day. And I understood at one point in time, trying to go without, how big of a mistake that was going to be. I had to taper off of that shit because I didn't want the detox to be really bad. I did not go to a facility. Doesn't mean you shouldn't if you're on that stuff, if it's something that you're looking to quit. I'm not telling anybody to do anything, but if it's something that you feel led to do, I highly recommend it because it's not doing what you think it's doing. I had to understand that it wasn't doing what I thought it was doing for me. It was not keeping me at a high vibration. It was keeping me stuck in a low vibration. And it was keeping that bridge between me and something dark. And it was, I believe, that thing, because I would still see it in my dreams at times. When I had stopped is when I never saw it again. I believe that was right. But anyway, um, so I had gotten off of it. Guys, it took about a month and a half for my brain to, after detoxing, because I tapered for about 2 weeks. After I had detoxed, when it was over, it was over. But the problem was is that it took my mind so much time to learn how to go without it. It took about a month and a half. Some people it takes longer than that. If you're on 7-0, which I hope you're not, but I know that some folks will do it. If you're on 7-0, I hear it's even worse. But it's possible you can get through it if that's what you're looking to do. So I ended up getting off of that. I had to clean myself up a great deal because my skin was really bad. And I had to also understand that a lot of what I was going through, because I was getting really, really weird sensations, and I'll probably talk about this tomorrow. I was getting very strange physical sensations in the beginning of 2025 as well. This is one of the reasons why I quit all of my vices, because these strange physical sensations was like a tightness in the neck, in the throat, and everything like that. A strange what do you call it? Like spasms and everything like that. I think that started sometime in 2024, but I'm not entirely sure. I do know in 2025 there were noticeably noticeable physical changes, um, physical symptoms. I didn't know what was going on with me. I thought I was insane. I thought I was losing my fucking mind. But over time, I understood something. And what it was my Kundalini awakening. My Kundalini awakening had started, and I knew nothing about this. The only way that I know it was Kundalini was there were a couple of times in the past, within the last couple of years, I had woken up having an orgasmic sensation with nobody there in the room. I woke up from a dead sleep sometime around 3:30 in the morning, being woken up from a dead sleep, having like legitimately climaxing, but no sexual anything anywhere, if that makes any sense. It's weird. And if you know, you know. So I'm going to end it here. And I will talk more about my Kundalini awakening in the next video. So if you're interested in that, follow. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about in either of these videos, drop it in the comments and I will see it. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So everybody have a wonderful day. Stay safe.